call the meeting to order, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If you,
Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen.
amen. Thank you, Councilor. Would you please recognize our nation's flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Broderick,
Here.
Councilor Elliott, Councilor Kennedy,
Here.
Councilor Laurie,
Here.
Councilor Martin,
Here.
Councilor Mendonca,
Here.
Councilor Mercia,
Here.
Mayor Murphy,
Here.
Councilor Noon. 7 present, 2 absent.
Thank you, and thank you to Mary Sheehan for being our clerk for the night while we have the others here. The purpose of tonight's meeting is, as we've discussed before, to really conduct the proper oversight of our 3 hires, direct hires, the auditor, clerk, and of course the manager. This will be the first in 7 meetings this year focused on those 3 offices. We'll begin now with the clerk's section of the agenda so that we're really keeping a handle on what's going on and what remains to be done in the office. And to really take a step back from the sort of week-to-week processes and understand and take stock of what we're actually doing and how well we're doing it. So one of our goals, strategic goals and objectives, is clearly open and honest government, and that efficiently and effectively delivers services. And this was an issue that was identified in reports last year, and I want to thank Councilor Mendonca for his work as the chair of that subcommittee on clerk oversight last year, and in getting us up to speed and up to where we are now. But I just recognize now our own clerk, Michael Geary, as well as assistant clerk, so that we can begin the presentation and then take your questions and comments afterwards. Mr. Geary.
Thank you. I thank Mr. Mayor and the members of the council for allowing me to be here tonight and to discuss our as we move moving forward in the clerk's office. I think Councilor Mendonca did a terrific job in terms of that ad hoc subcommittee, because you really you narrowed some issues there that need to be narrowed, and we're kind of moving forward on that structure that you provided, and it was an important element that it should be recognized for the work that you did in that terms. I've been here a little about 2 months now. The first 3 weeks, all I did was read. That had to be stuff that had to be read in the office in terms of that. After that, I had my eyes on the operation just to get familiarized with the operations of the office and the things that, how they're done and what needed to be done. And now, we're in the process of kind of coordinating with the different departments, because it really will be a team effort in terms of, moving forward on the clerk's office and making sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and I provided a short, summary in terms of the items that we had listed for this meeting tonight, and if there are, any questions on that, I can, respond to those, and we can move forward.
Perhaps if the clerk would just go through each of those items for the benefit of the people at home.
Sure. The first incident was written policies and procedures in the office. The major procedures in the office are all distributed to each employee, and they're all kept electronically in the electronic files, you know. There's a constant review of these policies and procedures because, you know, the elements of change a lot, and then things that I see may want to be tweaked in terms of procedures. And anytime you change a policy or procedure, you will, you know, you just implement the way you've implemented them before in terms of getting it out to the employees and understanding that it's going to be set aside in a standard review. So that's what we've accomplished, and that was being done, and we're just kind of fine tuning it. So it's always a work in project because there is, for my benefit, constant review of them. There are things that come up that need to be changed. There are new things that I didn't think about that had to have a policy or a procedure attached to it, and that will always be. I mean, that's just a constant overview and a constant recollection of what's going on and what needs to be done, just to make it, you know, your best management practice and your most efficient procedure and policies moving forward. I think the most recent thing that we did, and I think it was extremely beneficial, was prior, there was just one cash box in terms of operating out of that office. I didn't feel that was the safest in procedure to be in place in that office, because there are the 4 clerks that are out front. I think they each should have their own cash box, and each should be responsible for their own cash box. And that's the policy we implemented in terms of that. So it's the safety issue that concerned that's going to be covering everybody now, and it's accountability. So that was one of the policies that we, an example that we put in place and move forward on. Secondly, and also
Just a moment on
Yep.
those issues raised. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city clerk. Mr. Gary, when you say each employee has their own cash box, how many employees are we talking about?
There are 5 cash boxes. There are 4 for the employees out front, the head clerks, and there's a 5th cash box for myself and the assistant clerk if, you know, the overflow is such that we have to be involved with
So did the
work in the front.
So does the cash box start out empty in the morning?
No, there's a $50 draw on each of the boxes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Excuse me, and when you give a receipt today, is that indicating that it's the City of Lowell receipt?
Absolutely, based on your recommendation.
Okay.
A few weeks ago, it was taken to heart, and it was because it was a great recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
They are stamped now. We're in the process of, we're gonna be having receipts that are gonna have the imprint of the City of Lowell right on it, so we won't have to use the stamp machine any longer.
That's
And they're
great.
gonna be the seal of the city, and you're gonna know that, you know, came from the clerk's office.
That's great.
With the new receipt system.
Thank you
I'm
very
not
much.
sure when they're gonna be available, but I know I'm in the process of, they're
That's
just trying to
wonderful.
order them at most cost-efficient part of it.
Thank you very,
Each department will have their own, so if it comes from the building department or treasurer's office, they will have their own unique receipt, but they'll all be the same.
because I brought my water bill in, just so that I could see if it said City of Lowell, and when they put it into that thing that goes, it says City of Lowell, so that's, I just wanted you to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
Thanks. To what level of detail is there a written policy? Like, for example, you know, we don't need a written policy how to sharpen your pencils, right? Everyone knows how
Yeah.
to do that. But if I'm going in to apply for a dog license and I'm a new employee, you know, is it that level of detail? Someone wants a dog license, so you,
They are spelled
Well,
out, they are spelled out, the procedure that you should follow.
so same thing for issuing a birth certificate. death
Certificate.
So all the kind of basic functions of the
The
office
procedures, yeah.
have, I mean, I imagine the people that are, almost everybody's been there a long time, so they all know that, but that wouldn't necessarily always be the case, but, so that is done, essentially? I mean, I know you say you update them all the time, and I'm sure things improve, ways to improve, but you don't see any major processes in the office that are missing such a policy?
With the new system from the state, the VIP system, there's gonna be some new policies that are gonna be
Okay.
implemented there, because it's a learning curve for myself
Yeah.
and They've done the berths on there, and, you know, to be honest with you, there are some tweaks in there, so I'm just kind of getting a handle on that. And, you know, they are pretty well trained on that as well, in terms of registering berths and how to go about using that system. But I think as that develops, I think there'll be more tweaking in our procedures as well. And they're just starting with the death certificates, and I think they have a pretty long way to go on that in terms of getting that implemented as the berths.
Okay, but, you know, if something happened to you and, you know, I showed up there and they said, Bill, go get me a death certificate, and I had never done it before, I could go on the computer and it would explain ABC, how you go about doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. Go back to the cash box. It starts off with $50 in the morning. How often do they check daily with the employees?
Yeah, daily, they issue what they have and what's coming into me, and I spot check, random spot checks on it.
Oh, that's fine. And the money taken in each day? Over $50 per box. So there's 5 boxes, so you're keeping about $200 in the office.
Yep.
The money at the end of the day goes to,
It's deposited into the treasurer's office and entered into the Munis system.
oh, great, thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? So I guess we'll move on to the ethics law.
The ethics portion of my discussion, it kind of coincides as well with the boards and commission. Under the ethics law, there's a requirement that every 2 years you have to do an online training, and you have to get a certificate for that online training and register with the city clerk. In addition, on new employees, they have to have a summary of the ethics law, which is about an 11-page summary that's given out by the division that we actually have PDF'd, and we send those out in different packets, and the new employees get that as well. So the human resources department is involved there when they give out the initial requirements and what has to be done, and onto the employee, because basically it's the employee's obligation to get that back to the clerk. In addition to at the beginning of our employee, it has to be done annually for municipal employees. That packet has to be done annually. So we are in the process now of doing that via the email system, broadcasting it to the city through the department heads. So that way, you know, it lessens the amount of paper that's used, and it's easier to track. So we can send it out to everybody that has access to a computer as a city employee, but unfortunately, not everybody does. So that'll be incumbent on the department heads to make sure that the individuals that don't have the capability to get online and to get the package and to sign off on the package, get that package physically. And that it's understood that that sign-off and acceptance of the summary of the ethics by the ethics law is returned to the city clerk's office, where we'll be tracking it in the Munis system. So we'll be able to generate a report that says, okay, such and such got the package and we received confirmation of the receipt of the package, or such and such did not. At that point, we will we'll notify the department head, such and such does not have it, we need it for confirmation. So we're building up our database on that, because we're starting to get the packets out there to everyone and to broadcast that. So when that database is built up, then we'll generate reports in terms of who's in compliance and who's not in compliance, and track the compliance. I think it's kind of important that the employees understand that it's their responsibility to get that confirmation back to us, because frankly, if we have to chase all the employees, it wouldn't be beneficial, and it really couldn't physically be done. So I think some type of education in terms of the responsibility on the employee to return that is going to be part of our broadcast out to them.
Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Clerk, this sounds like it's probably going to be a bit of a Herculean task initially getting, what do we have, 1,400 employees?
I believe
You know,
that's, yeah.
so we're gonna have to create a dead,
School and city.
yeah, so we're gonna need an entry for each one, columned out to say they got the packet, they signed for it, they've taken the test online, they passed it, and so the department heads are gonna be responsible for keeping on that, but I guess someone in your office is gonna have to input that physically. I guess once you do it once, it's maintaining every year when people leave, but then, what are you gonna review it once a month, just to see, you know, to generate a report to get to the department heads?
That,
I just met with the MIS director who set up the database. Initially, the idea was to have, you know, more than just the clerk, myself, and maybe an additional employee, but because they allow you access to personal and confidential data within the Munis system, they don't allow too many people to have permissions to do that. So it was decided that it would just be the clerk and the assistant. So I've currently entered what we've received so far, which is the new ones. You go in and you attach the PDF acknowledgement that they received the summary, and you can also attach the PDF of the training certificate. So any ones that I've received so far, which is mainly the council and boards and commissions, those have all been attached, their dates have been entered, when they acknowledged and when they did their training. It was said to me by the IT director that he can do a report, whether it's monthly, weekly, however they want to do it. If some are going to be expiring, he'll be able to do a report. These people are going to be expiring. These people need to do the training again or receive the summary.
it's on the Munis system, anyone that derives a check from the city is on that system. So you're just gonna make an attachment to that individual in terms of the ethics. Annual distribution of the summary of the law, and the twice, every 2 years, confirmation of the online training. So that's how Munis is set up. Not all individuals, however, derive a paycheck from the city, and they may be on a board or a commission. So we're going to have to track that on a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, and from that element.
Okay,
Because a lot of the boards don't have a stipend and you're only on Munis, my understanding, if you get a check from the city.
so I guess my final question here, because I know this is a work in progress, and it's gonna be a big work in progress. What if they don't do it? I mean, you got all these people you're gonna have to chase, and the law says they have to do it, so unless we're
Yeah.
gonna start docking or holding their paycheck, you're gonna have folks that won't do it.
In a concern, I think we've got to get it out there to the employees that it's incumbent as part of their employment, that the fact of the matter is that there's an ethics law that has to be followed, and we have to follow it, and we have to go by the rules and regulations. To be honest with you, a lot of the employees might not be so impressed with the letter from the city clerk. My thinking is probably perhaps some drafting a letter from the manager's office in terms of, what's expected of the employees. Might have a little bit of a bigger hammer over certain individuals, so.
And that's, I guess, what I was wondering is if we should maybe file a motion or request the manager follow up in terms of, the difficulty in this form of government is you work for us, but people that work for you don't. And these folks that you're sending a letter out to don't work for you. So, someone, quite frankly, someone over in a different department who doesn't work in a computer, works out on the street or in a school, they don't have access, and, they're not going to think about this stuff when they get home and say, geez, I need to jump on my computer and get this certification.
Yeah, my thinking is, I think, working with the manager's office on that would probably be beneficial as well in terms of, just to make sure that it's understood. And also, there's going to be an effort, there has to be a coordination of effort with the school department, because they all need that as well.
Thank you.
And that's going to probably track, from superintendent's office to the principals, down to the assistant principals, out to the teachers. So there's a lot involved. We've got steps going towards it, and we'll get it done. It's a lot involved, but it's something that's going to take a little time and a lot of effort, but it'll be done.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the city clerk, where are they taking this test, did you say?
This is online.
Where do they take it, though? Where do they actually take the test?
Any computer has access to it.
But do they do it at work or at home, or?
Anywhere you have your computer.
Yeah, wherever your computer is.
Counselor, 2 years ago, it was a broadcast that was sent out that asked the department heads or to allow their employees time to actually take the test.
Right.
On city time, and if an employee didn't have use of a computer, to allow that employee to have use of one of the other employees' computers to actually take the test.
Right, I think that would solve a lot of your problems, is really put on a department head to have their employees do it, and if they do it while they're at work.
I really think that is the only way to hope that the policy gets, 99.9% to fruition. Another problem that before my time, 2 years ago, when sometimes these certificates that we get back are, because of how persons' computers are set and the settings on the computers, the certificate comes back crazy. Different date 2027. It's just the way their internal mechanism is set up. So, that's another issue that's going to have to be addressed in terms of, okay, you got to kind of, the name wouldn't be on there, there'd be just an initial on there. So I think it's another term that, to be in compliance, that we obviously look at them, and we're going to have to track those problems as they arise, because they come out of their computer, and some of them, the settings are off, and it causes really nothing that you can logically make sense of.
Two of my concerns is, one, it's actually a form of training, so it should be done really at work. Number two, you want to know who's actually taking the test. If they're taking it anywhere else but in the workplace, you don't know really who's taking the test.
Yeah. The test is interesting in terms of,
Well, I took it when I was at the university, and I really got to get you a copy to see if I have to take another one, to tell you the truth, because I took one at the university, and I'm hoping that.
I took one as well, but the test is interesting, Counselor, in terms of, I don't think you can fail it.
You can't.
You can't. So
But the point I'm saying
give
is,
you multiple chances to
you
come
can't
up with
fail
the
it,
correct response.
but I'd still like to see the person
Yeah, I understand you.
who's taking the test, because it doesn't mean, yeah. You're taking an ethics test and someone else is taking it for you at the house.
It's a
And,
legitimate concern.
stranger things have happened. But, really, it's a training process, so I think it should be done. And just to make sure the person himself or herself is taking it.
Yeah.
Not everyone's, and you might have to be with some, because not everyone's, I'm not very good with a computer. I'm not computer savvy. So I can turn it on, but at least get them to the point where they can
And
answer
again,
the
I
questions.
think as we move forward, there are going to be some obstacles that we'll face in terms of, capability of people to handle the computer, and also the fact that access to the computer.
Right.
As we spoke about earlier, Counselor, not everybody has access to a computer.
Absolutely,
And,
absolutely. And
so
I think
that's-
if doing it this way would probably take a lot of headaches off you, because the letter would come from maybe the manager's office, as Councilor Broderick said. It would go to the department heads, they would deal with each individual.
Yeah.
It's easier to deal with 5 or 6 employees than you dealing with.
I don't mind the headaches, and I appreciate your concern on it, but I think it's just a more efficient process.
Good luck. Yeah, no, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Mendoza.
Well, continuing with some of the discussion, I did take the test and realized when it printed out that the date was off by a day.
Okay.
That, looking into it, I found out my computer date was wrong. So it's printing out whatever the computer date, and probably some names for the fields where the name goes aren't properly entered by whoever's taking the test. These are all things that probably the ethics office in Boston should be told. It's their program, and they need to fix it to either generate their own date from their server,
Yeah.
and also have the form check that the name field is filled out.
It would be absolutely ideal, Counselor. The fact of the matter is, when you go take that test, if there was a capability in the state, and I'm sure they have it, when you hit completed, that you put where you're from, that result should automatically go to that clerk.
It makes a lot of sense.
And that's why I don't think it's going to get done at that level. But that would be an ideal procedure. I don't know if that's been talked about at that level.
Yeah, well, it's something we probably send on to the state as suggested improvements. And I believe if enough communities did it, going through this process, that they would correct it. My actual question about not only this one, but the next one, the open meeting law, is obviously it's incumbent upon you to distribute the materials.
Yes.
Then it's incumbent upon the employees, that's stated before, to do what they're supposed to and get you back any signed forms. So you're not directly responsible for the second part, but you have to record that it's occurring. And so for this in the open meeting law, I was wondering going forward, if you could, as part of your report, give us a total of how many have been distributed and what the status is of those totals. And also, probably break it down by each of the offices that are that either report to us or don't report to the manager. So maybe the clerk's office, the auditors, then the city manager, everyone else in the city, and the school department separately.
Okay.
So if you just tell us how many packets were distributed in each of those, how many of those have returned completed forms to you, that sort of thing.
Okay, we'll work on that. I think as the more input we put into the system too, the reports will generate. And I think, if we get a monthly report on everything, it keeps us abreast, it keep you, the council abreast as well. And I think if it's easy enough to generate a report every month, according to what MIS has told me, when we get enough input in there.
Yeah, each individual department has more leverage on getting those things done. So maybe monthly you could distribute it to those managers of those offices of the school department. But on a quarterly basis, if you could give us a report of where it stands as far as numbers go going forward, so we can see if it's completed or what progress is being made.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
That the only way you have of knowing is by the certificate that they generate after they've taken the test? Are you sure that there's no central reporting or central list, or do you just think you're not sure?
The certificate, no, there's not that capability I talked about in terms of central reporting to the ethics division that I'm aware of. It's that certificate that we get, and it's printed out, and it's from the division, and it just says that the test has been completed by them.
Well, then, how do they know if someone's not in compliance
not
with
the
the law?
individual?
Yeah,
I don't have an answer for you for that.
right. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. So to continue on with the open meeting law discussion, Mr. Clerk.
Oh, excuse me. The next was the open meeting law, which is kind of, it's the same situation in terms of, except we're dealing with the boards and commissions, and we're working towards, setting that list, getting a little bit tighter on that list for the boards and commission. And it's the packet is kind of extensive for the open meeting law. What they have is you have to provide them with a summary of the law, and the CMRs, which are the regulations surrounding the law, which are attached to them as well, and there's a certificate of acceptance that they have accepted it and will abide by it, basically. So that's another area too that we've got to focus on in terms of an electronic transfer of that information, because it's a budget buster in our office, because the packet is extensive, it's paper extensive, and so the thinking of it, like I said, it kind of coincides with our working on the boards and commissions in terms of getting that list together with email addresses and who is the chair of that commission, who is in charge of that board, filtering it possibly through that individual so they can trickle down the other individuals on the board and on the commission, and in terms of tracking it and making sure that they get that information back to us and able to file it in a regular manner. So that's kind of it's kind of the same procedure I'm thinking of in terms of the ethics law.
Thank you. Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, we'll move then to the issues around data entry.
The data entry, we have received a second scanner in terms of, scanning the documents into our system. We have, today I received a computer that's going to be attached to that scanner as well. We continue to work on an internship because, quite frankly, that's how this is gonna, a bulk of it's gonna get done by interns, because it's the time consumption and the amount of personnel down there in terms of, it's hard to take them away from the desk because there's a flow of individuals. Public need is pretty, which is the biggest thing that surprised me in the 2 months I've been there, is the public need in that office and the flow of the public into that office. And so I have had communications with the Career Center, and they're still working on, we've talked earlier, and I said, I gave them what a job description it would, so we get an individual up there that wouldn't need a lot of training, that wouldn't need, somebody that would be good, not make mistakes, and wouldn't have to be over his shoulder to making sure things got done right. He said the first round didn't really generate anyone that he was comfortable sending to me. There's a second round that's going to be done sometime beginning of March that he can pick an individual out, hopefully a college individual that can come in with longer hours as opposed to a high school individual, so we can get them there for an extended period of time. They're paid, but they're not paid by the city. They're paid by that outside element. So it really is, it's a great resource. We just have to match up with it individually with that person. And space. Space is another element that's needed in that office in terms of having a scanner in there. We have one in there already. The second scanner there's a couple of ideas that I've been kind of moving towards and hopefully getting some confirmation on. There could be there's an MIS training room that might be available for an individual. It's downstairs, so it's a little away, further than I'd like it to be, but if that's the case, that's the case. However, there's another office that's right next to the clerk's office that's empty. I'm just trying to work through some logistics in terms of getting that set up in there and having that individual set up in there, which is right next to the clerk's office. So if there are any questions, it's easily handled. So that's where we are with the data entry. We've got the equipment that I think that's necessary and that will help us achieve our goals. I think that they're in place now. They're not hooked up, but we have the physical equipment, which I'm happy about in the office. And now it's just a matter of the manpower skills. And I think, hopefully in March there'll be some confirmation on that. We'll have an individual. I'm going to grab as many as I can possibly get, and that's my plan on it.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick. And then
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr. Mayor. So this is a scanning of original records. I guess I have a number of questions here, because what original records? Stuff going back to the 50s or the stuff that we're doing now?
I'll have Angela address it. She's been involved with that.
Okay.
It's actually both.
All right. So, because as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, all right, we have 2 scanners now, but we're waiting for a computer for the second scanner. All right? And I understand resources are always an issue, but why wouldn't scanners you can buy for $400, a pretty good scanner these days? Volume-wise, I don't know what kind of volume. If you had, why wouldn't each person have a scanner attached to a station? I don't know
I can
what the
assure you,
setup.
the scanner we just purchased was not $400.
So it was probably some super-duper scanner.
No, it's actually compatible to the one we have, but the resources in our office, as far as budget, we don't have the money to purchase more than one. It would have been essential to purchase 2, 3, 4 of them.
So you paid more than 400 or less?
We had to go through a process through MIS, which is, they have a contractor who they contract with, and that's who we went through to get the price quote.
Okay. Was
Because
it?
they provide the maintenance and,
All right. I mean, I guess I would think it would make sense to have everybody set up, and they should be scanning things as they're receiving them now. I mean, I do it at my office, and I'm really not very technical. And I don't see why we would even consider not scanning stuff as we go. And then on downtime or bringing someone in, that's a great idea, as far as bringing in an intern or someone to start catching up on stuff. But certainly, why would we even
Well, that's the whole,
go with paper now?
trying to go backwards when we were doing the 1958 just birth records. We have one scanner, so you have people that are doing their daily work, the current deaths that come in, or the marriages that come in, or the births that come in. They're trying to scan the up-to-date ones, and when the scanner is not being used, they would go over and start with the older records. So it's kind of like if somebody's using it for the older records, then somebody with the newer records, they don't have the time to scan those in because they have to wait until that employee's finished.
Right.
So ideally, it would be essential to have more than 2 scanners.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that we would want to move to scanners, it's not going to go away, the technology. People, I understand we have some laws that we have to have paper records and so on, but it would sound like it might be a good way to look towards in the future is having everybody have their own station. And as far as the space, I understand it's nice to have everyone in one area, but I don't know how we operate around here in terms of wireless or hard wiring and all that stuff. But, I think that it would be, my personal opinion is it would probably be a good investment to get everybody a scanner and get a station, like they do at many of the registry of deeds. Things come in and people have their own scanner, or a couple have, scanning, scanners and people that just scan. It doesn't sound like we have necessarily the staff to have someone be the person that scans. So, it probably would make sense that, you do your document, you turn, you scan it, and it's in. And I'm assuming we have the program set up so it's real easy to, point and click with. This stuff is going to be saved and all that stuff's all done. So,
Well, in addition to the scanning, once you scan it, we have limited information that we have to put in to attach the record to, the registration number, the name.
right.
It also, you need another employee to go back and fill in the rest of the information. That record is not complete. It may be scanned, but it's out there with limited information. You couldn't create a certificate from it because it doesn't have all the pertinent information. You'd
Okay.
have to print out a copy of the PDF, which we don't have that capability because some of the records are not public. They have to have masking done to get rid of any restrictions that are placed on them, so the ideal is to print out a certified copy. And in order to do that, you have to have all the data that's got to be entered.
So it may not be worth scanning it until the certified copy's ready then. I mean, I don't know at what point it makes sense. Maybe you don't, obviously I don't work down there, so I don't know the system that well, but it may not be a situation where you go from the counter to scanning it, but at some point, as these documents are finalized, whoever finalizes them, as long as it's a uniform system, I think probably going to want everybody to be able to do it.
Right.
But thank you. I mean, that's good progress, and appreciate the update. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Mendoza. And then
Yes, I know that, as you stated, there's been lots of work going on, lots of people coming to the counter, and that's kind of related to my question on this. Again, as we oversee what's going on, I'd like to have numbers as to how much is being done. So in relation to this, it might be good for the quarter, each quarter, to know how much of each certificate, how many dog licenses were issued during that quarter. And that's all work that's being done in the office. And we'll be able to see it fluctuate from quarter to quarter, to see what's going on. As far as getting the older records scanned, I'd like to have a plan going forward, just to see how well we're doing at achieving the goal. So, know what years are not computerized yet. And then maybe have a goal of how many are going to be done during this year. Then at the end of the year, we can see, did we achieve that or how many we didn't get to? And then there's always reasons why we maybe didn't achieve the goal, but we should be able to tell from all the numbers of everything that's being done why that might have been. And can also use it as justification for purchasing more equipment if
Equipment-wise.
needed.
Budgeting justifications.
Yeah. So I think going forward, if we could generate that kind of information as a report to the council, I'd appreciate it.
The quarter reports.
Yeah.
That would be an issue.
I mean, I have some numbers now. I mean, I don't have actual numbers, but I can tell you the amount of years that, and whether the data entered or scanned, I can give you that now.
I didn't expect, but if you want to enlighten us right now, that's fine with
Okay,
me.
from 1990 to 2003, for births only, all the data is entered. That's for birth only. From 2004 to 2010, all the data is entered and all those records are scanned. So there is a PDF, well, it's not a PDF, it's a different program. There is an image that is attached to the actual data. From 2011, they started the new VIP system. So those records are in the VIP system, but they're still being tracked as well in our old system, because the VIP system still has a lot of problems. So we're keeping it in both systems. In marriages and deaths, the same thing. From 1990 is when we started to computerize them. They're not all scanned, but they have all been data entered from 1990 to the present.
Okay.
And we are working with scanning the documents to attach to the data. So,
Okay. So that's from 1990 on. We're
For
a good
birth,
ways
marriages,
there,
and
not
deaths,
complete. But there is an effort to get things, I know you started in 1958.
1950, as customers come in, because that's the amount of records that we can hold in the safe that's in our office versus having to leave the office to go pull an original to actually enter it. If somebody comes in that was born in 1950 to the present, the employee will check the computer. If they are not listed in the computer, they will pull the original and enter it as the customer waits, and they will print them out as certified so that all the data is entered on that record. So it's sporadic. We tried doing 1 year at a time, but it seemed like you could get more in if you were doing them as the customers were coming in to get them into the, it probably takes a minute to enter the record. We don't scan it at the same time because there may be attachments to it. Some of the books are bound. All those bindings have to be broken, which is what we did with 1958, because that was the worst index or register that we had.
Okay. Well, I mean, however it's done is fine. I mean, I understand someone coming in is a good opportunity. You're going to be
Right.
pulling the record anyway. But I'm just hoping that there would be a plan to systematically get through those older records that you intend to computerize. Maybe some you're just going to archive and not, but just so we know what the plan is.
Yeah.
If that
And
could be
I think
provided.
we'll have, the plan is going to involve an intern, because that's the only way to have really consistency in our effort. And that's what I want to see. And because, like I said, it's just, I think if we get a consistent effort out of there, I think we'll be able to bang out a more consistent flow.
Understood.
I don't know how fast it will be, Counselor, but it will be full.
Well, the resources are going to determine
Yeah.
how much gets done, and having an intern versus not having it is going to change what gets done. But I think we just, or at least I would like to have that plan, and we'll know later whether we had the resources of an intern or not.
Yep.
In order to achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy and then Councilor Laurie.
Mr. Mayor, I just have two things. You said you could use more scanners, so that will be in, you make a budget request for more scanners for this year, is that your intent?
Well, we have the scanner, we have the two that we have now. We've got, I think, enough to go forward on how we want to do it. If we wanted to get it for each individual desk, then it would have to be a request in terms of budgeting.
Do you have any idea how much the scanner that you just purchased cost? What, less than $150?
No,
I'm sorry, I didn't,
less than 150.
Was it less than $150?
it's a lot more than that.
Lot
Because you
more.
also have to pay for the maintenance. There's a maintenance contract that comes with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you indicating then that you don't think that you'll need more scanners?
I think if we have the two up and running and the ability to have an intern, I think we can make substantial progress in terms of the backlog.
Okay. You also mentioned that you needed more room, more office space,
Yeah.
and there's a room vacant
There is a room that.
adjacent to you?
Adjacent to between myself and Neighborhood Services.
Okay. And so nobody's using that? What's preventing you then from taking that space? If it's empty and nobody's using it?
I've I've got to make further inquiry in terms, I suppose the manager would be the person who would have to touch base with in terms of there's things in there, but I don't really, I'm not sure if I have never seen anybody going in and out of there. So I'd like
I
to,
think it's just used for storage. Have you been in there?
just from the outside viewing it in.
Yeah.
And I
was-
think it's connecting
Yeah, it was-
to the neighborhood services, might have been
It was
part of it.
the data analyst, that was his office. He's since moved to personnel.
Okay. So it's empty space and nobody's using it. And did you say there was more space down in the basement that nobody's
There's
using?
an MIS training room downstairs.
Okay, so that's being used at least sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah.
How often do they use that? Do you know? Do you have any idea?
I've used it in terms of, I've used it a few times because with the VIP from the state training, I don't know how often it's used. They control the calendar on that.
Okay, well, I don't want to get off track then, but so what prevents you from, what do you need in order to be able to use the space that you need that's adjacent to your
I
office?
just see, I don't want to just some confirmation, I think, from the different departments saying that they hadn't had it on the radar and it wasn't being used. There was somebody in there about a month ago clearing it out, but I haven't seen any activity since then. I was kind of commandeering my interns in terms of, getting them together and seeing how many I'm going to have.
Okay,
So, but, I'll commandeer the space. I think a more aggressive approach on it, at this point, would probably be beneficial.
yes, that's how I would do it.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that old space, wasn't that with the license commission at one time? Ryan, when was there?
No, Ryan, when I was on the license, Ryan was on where the neighborhood services are.
Okay,
Yeah, it's between that and my office.
okay, thank you. We're right now doing 1950 to the present.
As people come in, yes.
Okay, and what happened to the prior records?
What do you mean, what happened to them?
Where were they stored?
Yep.
Yeah.
Downstairs?
No, in several safes.
Several, yeah.
Are we doing any microfilm with them?
Have not started that. Those are the register books that Mr. Leahy was talking about that,
Right. Now, I was a history major, so I was always playing with these things. And you're dealing with public records, so there's specific laws really on how you handle them and how you store them.
correct.
I think it's Burlington that has an archivist. I'm wondering if we don't need to bring someone in. I mean, with all due respect, that's what they work with is public records and how they're stored, how they're microfilmed, and things like that, just for a short period of time, just to get the city up and running. It's just a question I have.
Well, my question would be, then how would we issue certificates if an archivist just,
Well, he would be
because I
doing-
think you're talking in terms of storage, but we're putting them into a database to be actually issue certificates. That's what our database is doing. We put them in to be able to issue an actual certificate, not to store it.
Wow.
We've had the system since Wayne was here. When Wayne went out is when we purchased the system back in 1990. So they've been computerized since then. Prior to that, there's been no computerization of,
And the books are scattered in different locations around,
the actual records are.
and they,
There is no safe store. We have 3 safes
Yeah.
that we occupy that are in different locations in this building, some of
We-
which we
we-
share with other offices.
Just got another safe at the Parks Department. We were able to get a safe there, and that's going to be cleared. So that's a good additional space.
and do we know where those books are? Are there records on what years are kept in what safe? And
Yeah.
is
Yes.
it done that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's not,
Yeah.
that's okay then. Okay, that was the only question I had we're also dealing with public records. Do we need to really look outside the box for someone to come in? Because, basically, we're starting over again, it seems, and with the new systems. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you. I'm going to kind of play into Councilman Donzer and Councilor Laurie there, combination. I think it might be helpful if, and I know this is very difficult, and I think something just clicked with me here, is that we've got 2 data entry issues. One is the data entry for the clerk's office that they use to produce ongoing certificates, and the other really is the preservation. And I think we might confuse it a little bit, like, just scan it and then file it away or whatever. It's two different, it sounds like it's two different actions, really, right? It's putting it into your
There is
system.
actually 3 actions. To go back to data entering any of these records, there are amendments that are done that are affidavit and corrections. Anytime a record, whether it's birth, marriage, or death, has an amendment done to it, those amendments have never been kept with the original record. So when we started with the year 1958, based on the register book being in disrepair, before we can start data entering any of that, we have to pull out all of the affidavits. Now, affidavits are done by year, so if you were born in 1958, we started with the year of 1958 affidavit box. We go through the entire year, pulling out any affidavit or any amendment that happened for a birth that occurred in 1958. We have to pull every record from 1958 to the present, because somebody may have had an amendment that was born in 58 that happened in 1990.
Right.
So you can't really enter that record because the amendment is the final version.
So how,
The
there's a
amendments,
lot
the
of
amendments at
backlog
the
than
time
just
was
entering.
not attached to the original record. That's how the system was way back then,
Right.
and so it's not attached to the original record. So if you get that 58 record, like Angela said, you gotta, it's not, it might look all right, but you've gotta up, what's it called, Council Marty, Lexus. It's like a
Jeopardize.
Lexus, you gotta go up and from 58 on to see,
jeopardize?
jeopardize.
Well, all right, so I guess, and then looking forward, or trying to figure out how we get there, because at some point, we're gonna have the stuff preserved, maintained, whatever we wanna call it, right? That's one separate issue. We need to have the data entry for usable, but also accuracy, which is two different function, or two different actions on the clerk or someone's part. Is there a way, and I don't need an answer now, I don't expect to have an answer now, but I think Councilman Donza mentioned this, could we come up with a plan? Say we get one intern for 40 hours a week. How many documents can that person be expected to do if you've got to go from whatever the date of birth is and check every affidavit box up to today, okay, or up to when they were computerized, maybe, whatever, I don't know if it changed at that point, but it's obviously a lot more involved than I was thinking. Oh, it's just scanning stuff, it's great, I can come down and do it. What are we talking timetable? We talking, we can do 1 year per year? We talking 3 years per year, or 10? I mean, is this a 20?
Just roughly from the time that the previous acting clerk was there, we started with the 1958, which was pulling the affidavits and scanning. We have only scanned, with limited data, 2,700 records from the time the previous acting clerk was there.
So what's that, August? When was he?
I
July?
think he came in September.
September, okay. So 27, how many records a year do we do?
30, it's like
35,
500,
4,000 some years.
Okay, so we might be able to do a year per...
That's just scanning, that's no data entering. That's just pulling that was doing 2 processes, pulling all the affidavits, because if you scan the record and you want to scan the amendment first, because that is now essentially the original,
it's a controlling record.
Right.
so you have to scan them in the correct way, and then now they all have to be data entered. They
But
may be scanned, but
So it makes sense to do both processes, maybe, scan it, then enter it, rather than file it away and have to go pull it again. So we're looking at maybe doing both. It would be like a year per year type of thing with one intern?
Yeah,
So-
maybe a little bit more.
Okay, right, because we didn't have one
Yep.
person designated
Yeah.
for it. What I'm wondering is, this may be a situation where we have to say, okay, let's throw some resources at it just to get it up to speed, and now once there's a system in place, like, we had to do the cash book for the treasurer's office. And I don't know if this is or not, but based upon the timing, how critical is it to get this stuff in there? What is it gonna save us in time and so on, as we're operating at a much more efficient clip in terms of producing these documents in the future as well. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed that, oh my God, we gotta get all this stuff done. How are we gonna everybody's tied up 85% of the day, and these folks think we're gonna, go back the last 53 years or 54 years and scan and enter this data in the next couple of years. So if there's a need for resources, whether it's another scanner or space or whatever, you know, maybe in the next, what are we, in March? So we'll meet again the end of June, so I assume you're gonna have to come up with some budget requests or whatever.
Yep.
If there's something that you're thinking of that you might need, you know, I'd be more than happy for you to bring it forward, put it on the agenda or whatever, because, you know, better to put it in our budget and know what we're gonna try to accomplish, but I think it's all part of that. You can't manage what you don't measure, and if we don't have you know, some type of, you know, quarterly, we can check in quarterly and say, okay, we wanted to do 2 years per year, in the first quarter in, we're only, you know, 2 months through the first year, we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
So I think if you can come up with some type of, I guess, program for it, or what do you think we might be able to handle, and what your recommendations are? How long should something like this take? Should we try and get it done? Because it's gonna save us time, it's gonna save, you know, the
Yeah,
folks.
I think your long-term picture you're thinking about will save us time and.
You know, if it's gonna be more efficient, we're gonna, you know, we may as well use the efficiency to save some money in the office as well, and then once we get up to speed, I think it'll be easy to maintain. But I didn't want you to leave here thinking, oh boy, you know, we're operating on a shoestring here, and they want us to go back 50 years at the same time. So I don't want you to leave with that impression. I think it's important to do it, but as long as we all kind of agree on what the plan's gonna be, and make sure that we understand what the needs are. But I think Councilor Kennedy asked, is it something you're gonna bring in? I think it'd be a good idea to have some type of proposal maybe for the council for the budget time.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've just got emailed information in terms of, you know, the beginning process of the budget, and we'll be formulating some stuff. I think we'll put together a package in terms of those goals that you've outlined, and in terms of my goals that I have.
Yeah, and maybe what savings it'll maybe
Generate.
over there as well. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And we'll be actually meeting at the end of May, which will lead right into the budget process, so I think that's a good recommendation. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know you're going through the Career Center for some applications and
Yeah,
help.
yes.
Have you gotten any help from interns from the university?
I haven't inquired up there yet because I have been working, I think there's a pool available in terms of this Career Center.
Yeah.
I just got an email back from him yesterday, so, you know, he's gonna get another field of an opportunity for me to do, and I think if I stay, I think there's work there that we can pull out of that. And I haven't inquired for the university, but I like to see where he's gonna go with the Career Center thing, and,
Well, sometimes the interns from the colleges, they just come in to work for experience.
yeah.
And believe it or not, when you get into original documents, this is what you run into all the time. This isn't unusual. When you go to the Mogan Center or the university, you're usually coming in with the end product. But when you get into original documents, this isn't unusual.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, because the university, the kids who are history majors, English majors, things like this is actually a pretty good project for them to get involved in, and it might help you a little bit if we can get you that room next door.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there any further discussion on this item? In that case, we'll move on to the issues with board and commission membership.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of boards and commissions, the efforts going forward, it's, you know, with the manager's office who makes the appointments. And we just had a meeting last week with Mr. Marchand from the manager's office in terms of trying to get a handle on the list and trying to get the list abbreviated and updated in terms of, you know, who's active and who's out of date of service and who our holdovers are, as I guess we distinguish them as holdovers. And it was good to get, you know, together with them. There's more work to be done on it. In a couple of weeks, we're meeting again, and we're going to be having a display from agenda.net with the boards and commission, which I received a report of, you know, a 50-page report that we have inputted a lot of the boards and commissions in that agenda.net. So we just kind of have to go through the process of saying, okay, who's active, inactive, who's a holdover status, and based on information that we get in the clerk's office in terms of the appointment. We just had a discussion in terms of the appointment letter should say what the date of appointment is, what the date of the term is, and, you know, that way we can input it, and then for the holdover ones, you just have to have another appointment. However, that's going to go about from the manager's office, but we get that information and it's updated immediately into the system. So it's really a work in progress. It's a big mountain, but it's moving forward. It's going to be an effort on both our parts and the manager's parts to kind of get that list tightened, and it's important fact for the element of the open meeting law too, to get those packets out too. So they kind of coincided with each other, and we're moving forward on it. You know, I think in a relatively, you know, I see where we meet in a couple of weeks, in a relatively short period of time, I think we can get that list a little bit more crystallized, and that'll be, you know, kind of a load off my mind, and I think it'll be beneficial to the city as well, so.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through you to the clerk. Could we get a copy of the list as it exists now?
Yeah. Yeah, we that agenda.net, I believe, I can furnish you a copy of what we have in there and what we've
Okay.
inputted, yeah.
And I understand that there's probably a lot of holdovers and
There
maybe
are.
vacancies
There are.
and whatever, but it would be good to at least see how it stands right now.
Yeah.
Do you know how many boards and commissions there are?
23.
23.
23?
That was the most accurate
was
list that
the
we
latest
just
that we had.
received, that the law department had verified. This 23 on the list.
Okay. Are there, out of those 23, are there some that would be, that are dormant or just aren't, or just have kind of run their course? And
Yeah, I just my visual view of it, I haven't got any, just what I know from being in the city and saying I haven't heard much action on that board.
Right.
I see a couple that are, there's a couple that kind of emerged together, from my understanding, what I've heard, like Cool and another organization that they're kind of merged together on it, and so I don't know which one it was, but stuff like that, incidents like that are there. There are a couple of boards that really haven't probably met, that are still on the list.
Okay. So the active, out of that 23, the active boards, how many are there, 10, 15?
Probably more than that. I think
That meet on a regular basis?
Yeah.
And when they meet on the regular basis, you send out the notice, right? The notice goes through you,
They send it to us.
they send it to us and we post it.
and then you post it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have contact with the chairman all the time, right? Or,
Secretary or,
yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. It seems to me that everybody that sits on those boards, you may not know whether they're holdovers or when they've started, but I would bet you that they all know exactly when they started. If they don't know the exact day, they at least know the month and the year that they were appointed to that board. And so it might be helpful to just ask the chairman the next time they call a meeting, or to ask the chairman before they call a meeting, just to poll the board and find out when
they're up and
when does everybody think that they were appointed? Then you can just verify it according to the minutes, and then,
Yeah, and
I
we
mean,
can-
isn't
we
that
can-
an easy way to do it, or is that,
yeah, I mean, I think.
am I making it sound too simple?
Unless, of course, they want to stay on the board longer than they're actually appointed for.
It does sound simple when it comes from your counselor, but I think it's a good, but when you sit down there, sometimes complications arise. And, but I think that the element you're speaking about is a good reference point for me to cross-check what we have coming in there. Because basically, we're just, we're an information dumping ground, and we react to what the information had to post it and to finalize the list. So I think that's a good cross-reference to see, to cull that list, because there are a lot of active and inactive holdovers, and sometimes I'm not sure of what all those terms mean, but I just want to get when you're appointed, when you're not appointed, and let's put it on the list.
Right. But I guess what I consider to be sort of the major boards would be the planning board, the Board of
Yeah.
Appeals, the License Commission, and, maybe I'm missing one or two, but they
Yeah.
meet on a regular basis. Those are, and I would think that those must all be up to date, aren't they? Or,
Not,
We just got the list, and zoning board had people
Yeah,
that have been off?
they're not all up to date in terms of,
Okay.
you know, there's some holdover statuses and some expiration dates, so. But that, I think the attack should be on those major boards first.
Okay,
But like I said, I think it'd be a short kind of order in terms of, you know, who we got there and appointment date and expiration, termination date. That's the kind of an interest that, from my clerk's perspective, I have. And we just feed off that information.
some of the terms are 3-year terms and some are 5-year terms. is that
Some are,
correct?
yeah, some are 4, some are 2.
Okay,
It's statute-driven, and
yeah, okay. All right, well, if we could get a copy of what you have now, at least, that'd be helpful to me. I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And I understand that it's gonna take a little more time, but I'd like to just see how bad the situation is right
yeah,
now.
there's a lot we gotta clean up, you know, but I think it can, like I said, we can be done in terms of, you know, moving forward and coordinating cross-checks and getting information and just making sure that, you know, as the information dumping bin, that I get it. And then once I get it, it'll turn over relatively quickly, because everything we get, we put right in. Right in. Because if we don't, if it sits on a desk for a day or two, you forget it. So it goes right in.
So we can maybe get that for next Tuesday?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Broderick and then Counselor Mendonça.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the issue, or that may come up with the difficulty or challenge here is not so much the ones that know when they were appointed. Well, some will know, some won't. Some might have been, you know, reappointed 3 times. And I think what might have happened over the years is there's a moving target. You might have been appointed in November of 1998, but you're reappointed instead of November of 2003, it goes over into March of 2004 because you're a holdover for 5 or 6 months, and then all of a sudden that happens for 3 or 4 terms, and now we're off by a year and a half, and we've got 2 members that are expiring the same year that it shouldn't happen on a particular board.
And some of the issues in those terms too, Counselor, is the fact there are resignations. And technically, when there's an appointed for those resignations, a subsequent appointment, I believe it has to be appointed just to fill out the term of the person that resigned. So that kind of staggers things and mixes up dates as well.
There might have been some, things that just kind of slowly just got out of whack a little bit. I think that's
I
maybe
think it was
more
a
the
little
difficulty.
snowball going downhill.
The easy part is cleaning up the ones, the people that are gone, they're gone. You can take them off the list. That takes 30 seconds or less. But I think some of these boards, the planning board, there's 5 members, 1 every year should be reappointed. And I would think that it would be the same month every year for all of them, but it's not. And that may be a process, when I was on the planning board, I don't remember when I was appointed anymore, but it's probably pretty certain that it wasn't 5 years to the month when I got reappointed. And I think that starts to create that domino effect, and where we might have got out of whack to now go back. And if now you got 2 people appointed the same year, or 3 people, I think the license commission, are they all the same year? Or there's only 3 and they've got 5-year terms or something. So you create a situation where the statute's controlling in terms of appointments, so what do we do now? You can't give someone a 6-year term, you can't give them a 4, and you got 2 people the same year on a 5-year term. So I think that might be a little bit of difficulty, but I agree that the list can be cleaned up initially to at least remove folks that have resigned that aren't on anymore.
And I think in terms of when we clean up the list and get it finalized into that agenda.net, that can generate a report in terms of if someone's coming up, this month for termination or the term is out. So I think that we create a more of an ability to stay focused and on track with it.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you got the agenda net going, and you're not responsible for the appointments or the information that gets to you. So you're just kind of we're shooting the messenger here. But I think there's going to be a little bit of work to clean it all up. But
There will be.
we're making progress.
Thank you. Counselor Mendonça?
Yes, well, obviously, it's been taking longer than I expected. It's been a few months now.
Yeah.
But so what I suggest is, rather than it's done or not done, if it's not going to be done by, say, May, then let's break it down and do, like you were suggested, I believe, do a board at a time, and just cross that one off. This one's done. And then at least give us a list of the boards that are completed, updated, and those that remain to be updated. I'm hoping that by May you can just report that they're all done. But
That's
if
my
not-
hope as well, but like I said, if coming towards May, I see that pushing the pile altogether forward is not essentially the best approach. I think that we could invoke that more of a laser touch on it.
Might as well break it down to doable tasks so that you can complete some of them.
The more active boards, I guess you'd call it, would be
Yes.
the ones we'd like to conquer first.
Just a suggestion, and then reporting in May. Either it's all done, or let us know which ones are done, which ones remain to be done.
Thank you. Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not familiar at all with this agenda.net program, but is that also going to be used for minutes of the
It is.
board
It
meetings
is.
and things?
Counselor, I've had an introductory element to it already. It covers boards, agendas, minutes. Seems to me a pretty effective program. The school committee has rolled it out already, I believe. My more intensive training doesn't begin next week, but the following week, in terms of that element and in boards, like the boards and commissions, they've already worked on it in our office before I was here, inputting that, and I'll be more familiar with it in a couple of weeks when they give us a little demonstration on it. But it's gonna roll out for everything, and my guess is probably sometime during the summer, we're gonna be, we'll probably do a parallel system with the old system and the agenda.net system for a couple of meetings and kind of go our way into the agenda.net. He's gotta train us, and then he's gotta train the different departments as well.
The reason I ask is in the past, the counselors at various times have requested to get agendas of various boards and commissions. For example, we've asked for the Board of Appeals agenda so that if there's, a variance application where they are, if we had interest in knowing about that, if we get calls about it, we know in advance. And now I think we just get the postcard mailed to us of that agenda. And we've also asked for minutes of various commissions, and they vary widely in the information contained. I mean, some of them are pretty comprehensive. Others don't even say who was in attendance at the meeting. So if this is kind of a standard format that they all will need to follow,
That's
I
my
think
understanding
that's an improvement, and it may also eliminate the need for more paper coming to the council if that's always going to be, the agenda is always going to be posted online for each board and commission.
Yeah.
That I think would be an improvement as
Yeah,
well.
I agree with you. Just like I said, the limited amount that I've been involved with it looks like there's something that would be a little more beneficial and more efficient for the city. And I think the long-term goal is paperless, but that's down the line from my understanding, way down the line.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just out of curiosity, just listening, and we got a list of people on the boards that was requested by Councilor Kennedy a couple of weeks ago, and many of them were deceased that were on the
Yeah.
list. Some of the boards, not all of them, they receive a small stipend for their work. Has anyone cross-checked with the treasurer's office or auditor's office to see if anyone who's no longer on the board is receiving?
A check.
Yeah, just,
Yeah. I've never, it's an element that, probably another good cross-reference in terms of who's active and,
we've only been here a couple of months. I mean, let's face it, this is a new process.
yeah.
But, there are some boards that get a stipend, and that's one way I was thinking, well, you could look to see who's on the boards.
That's another cross-reference check that we
But it's
utilized, yeah.
just out of curiosity, if someone's getting a check who's no longer on the boards. Well, thank you.
Sure, the auditor is on top of that. But if there's no further discussion on this item, we'll move then to issues with cross-training.
Yeah, the last issue is cross-training. As Council Mountain alluded to earlier, if he walked in there, he would have an ability to train him pretty quickly. And all the clerks in that office have the ability to do the others' work. So there isn't an incident in there where someone will come in and say, "Can I have this?" And the answer would be no. She's out today. that's not happening there, and that, in the future, that won't happen. So, the cross-training is everybody knows everybody else's job, and, moving forward on that. So, that's not hasn't been an element of an issue for me. Everyone can do others' jobs in there, and that's, and from my perspective, I don't want to have someone come in and say, oh, John, Betty's not in today, you can't get that. That shouldn't happen, and it won't happen in that office.
Thank you. Any discussion on that item? I would probably suggest March 23rd, I think, is when the department heads' budgets are due to the manager, just the proposed requests. I would probably suggest that we receive a report before the May meeting, that we receive a report on the requests and sort of the strategic goals and objectives that will be a part of that budgeting process. So I might entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. So we'll, Councilor Mendonça.
If we can discuss things that aren't on the list here.
Sure, yeah.
Just this morning, somebody suggested that could we look into the possibility of accepting credit cards as payment? And for the purpose of obtaining some stuff online, and I know there'll be privacy issues and what can be obtained, but if some things are public record and somebody is able to get them regardless, that if they could pay for them, say, online.
Through a credit card.
Get it through a credit card to get it that way. It'd generate more revenue into the office, but also could be more convenient for the person obtaining the record.
Yeah.
If they would be available to them anyway.
Yeah, like I
That's
said,
what we
the
need to
ordinances are
research.
online, and other records that are there are online. I'd probably converse with the auditor in terms of, is there a capability, you want to have them, like a PayPal, I guess it is, go in, you want a copy of the ordinances, it's $10, pay like that, zoning map, zoning
Exactly.
bylaws.
I mean, you could
They're all
expand it
available online.
beyond the vital records, yes.
Yeah.
So if that could be explored to the future as something we might be able to do to make it more convenient to those we serve.
Yeah, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if they come in looking for zoning amendment into the clerk's office, there is a fee that's involved with that. Now, if they just print it off the website, obviously at this point, there's not a fee, and we would want to generate
Well, if they can already do it, then it's already done, but
Yeah.
there may be some things
some
that
other things that,
maybe they can connect to this VIP system, potentially. I'm not saying that it's allowed.
Yeah.
But if it is legally allowed, then we might be able to do it so that they could just come in over their computer, make the request, make the payment, and then receive the document. It might be something to explore if it's feasible in the
I
future.
think they can at the state level, but I don't think they can at the city or towns yet, where they just rolled out this new program.
it
not
might
sure
be
if
something
they
they're
have it
working
set
on
up.
that end.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
just something to explore. Thank you.
Okay,
Councilor Broderick and then Councilor Martin.
We seem to be talking about two different things. One is records, and the other is the other thing, the city ordinance and things that the clerk is in charge of and reproduce and sell also. I assume Councilman Mendonça is talking more about records. Someone wanted to order a birth certificate, death certificate. I mean, folks work, and sometimes, and I get it sometimes, oh, is there another way to get a death certificate? I'm gonna have to leave work early to get downtown and, for my uncle or something like that. So you're talking about being able to pay online, order it online, but it gets mailed to you? Because the difficulty I could see is, the whole point of getting it is to be original certificate.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you could print that out. I think it would probably have to be.
With the seal.
Be mailed to you.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you get an abstract. There might be a fee for that. It's not the stamped certificate.
There's
No
only,
longer issue the
there's only one type of certificate that goes out now.
Yeah,
There's not a
but
long
so,
form, short form.
I'm not sure what might need to be done. What Council Broderick suggested might be a way to do it where they order it online, pay for it, and then it gets mailed in. I mean, it was suggested that the fee could be a little larger for that
Service.
capability or service so that we could cover any credit card fees, any postage we might need to do would all be covered in that. enhanced fee.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
Well, that clarifies it for me a little bit, so I can see that there is a convenience factor that you're paying for, not having to go downtown by ordering your birth certificate, so yeah, pay with a credit card. But I wouldn't want to see us now starting to charge, for
Services
something
on
you can get for free if
I
you just
understand that,
download it yourself. But that does make sense to me, and I speak from experience a little bit. If you don't pay your parking tickets on time, eventually, you can pay by credit card, and there's an extra fee of $3 if you opt for the privilege of paying by credit card, which I think is to compensate the city for the fee that would otherwise be payable to the credit card company. So that's not through the city, though. That's when those things get assigned off to the collector. But
Yeah.
and I think the whole reason the city hasn't done that to date is because of the fees, but certainly something worth exploring, but it probably goes beyond just the clerk's office.
Any further discussion? I'd entertain then a motion to adjourn by Councilor Broderick.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you, Mr. Clerk, for being here, and
Thank you,
Mary
Mr. Mayor,
Sheridan
and
as
members
well.
of the council, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.